Hi, I'm Dennis from Plain Truth Ministry. Welcome to Friday in the Word. Today I want to talk about knowledge and wisdom. When I think of knowledge, I think of something that is foundational in our learning process. Knowledge provides us with a basic education, if you will. If we think about a couple of different subjects, we can kind of see how that begins to flow. If we think about math, when we learn arithmetic to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and then even if we go further in detail in math, what we're learning is how numbers work together and relate to one another. And we're able to, over time, solve mathematical equations. That is knowledge. When we think about reading, we learn words, we learn how to pronounce words, to recognize words, how words are related to one another, how to put words together in sentences, in paragraphs, and into conversation. And then writing. Writing is a tool that allows us to remember what we have said previously. It provides us a reference tool for not only ourselves, but for others to see what we have thought and said previously. Mastery of these three skills provides us with a basis of knowledge. What it doesn't provide us with, however, is a foundation of how we are to use those skills, that knowledge that we have gained. That change requires wisdom. Proverbs 9:10 famously says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. When we see that term or see that phrase, the fear of the Lord, we're not talking about a terror within us. We're talking about a profound respect and awe for God's power and authority. It includes a recognition of God's authority and a desire to live in accordance with His will. It provides us with a moral and ethical framework for which we can live, and it's going to guide our actions and decisions. When we pass over from knowledge to wisdom, what we're doing is passing from the ability to use a tool to the understanding of how to use a tool in a way that makes sense. If we fear the Lord, and that is the beginning of wisdom, we're going to seek to find ways to use that tool to do His will, use what we've learned for His will. Paul wrote about this connection in Colossians, in his letter to the Colossians. And there's a couple of parts here. Colossians chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. Paul says, "For this reason we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you and to ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of His will in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, that you may walk worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing Him, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in knowledge of God, strengthened with all might according to His glorious power, for all patience and long suffering with joy." And then in verses 16 and 17, he says, "For by Him all things were created that are in heaven, that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created through Him and for Him. And He is before all things, and in Him all things consist." So, what we have to remember is the tools that we're given and the knowledge of how to use those tools are all given by God and through God and for God's use. Therefore, the wisdom that comes from the fear of the Lord teaches us how he wants us to use the tools that we have learned how to use. And we are to use them to do his will because they are given by him and they are for him and he is in them. Knowledge and wisdom. Wisdom, wise control over the knowledge that we have. God bless.